every Christmas, my dad found a way to get fired at the Christmas parties. It's family business is never easy. I could say that the positive sides for me is that my dad, I felt, always trusted me.
Welcome to the Ride and Style Podcast, your turbocharged pit stop for automotive restyling. Buckle up with Jesse and Josh.
Welcome to another episode of the Ride and Style Podcast with my co-host Josh Poulson here, and I'm Jesse Stoddard. Hello, everybody. And today we're really excited to introduce Manny Moncada of AutoHaus Automotive Solutions, Hayward, California, the Bay Area's automotive accessory leader. Hi, Manny. Thanks for being with us today.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Oh, man, we are doing fantastic, Jesse. I am super excited. Manny, one of my good friends in this business, bro. We've been friends for a long time, and partner. Yeah, we'll get into that. No, I mean, Manny and I have known each other for, was your first meeting for Restylers United Boston, was it?
It was Boston.
Gosh, what year was that? Do you have any recollection?
I think it's been about 12 to 15 years.
Okay, so about 12, 15 years ago, you came to Boston. You flew all the way
from Boston.
His first meeting. We said, we're gonna see if this guy's serious. He flies from California to Boston, and we had a good time. What was your? I gotta ask you. So, and we'll go back into history in a minute. But what was your first impression coming to a Restylers United meeting? You and I were sitting across from dinner for each other when we met. What was your first impression? Not of just me, obviously, because you were like, I hate this guy, but
it was Jeff Fletcher. That invited me, and they told me about the group, and I was in a spot where I was like, I'm all alone, I need some ideas. And he told me a little bit about the group, and so then when I went into the group, had no idea what you guys were about, and I was intimidated, but I felt very comfortable with everybody that was in the group. So after a good couple hours, it was fine. I felt like this is going to be pretty good. And of course, I had to get voted in, and
he barely made it.
Looking around the room, you can edit this part. I was the only Mexican.
So we were working on our DEI. Yeah, so we had you were in no matter what. Well, no, I mean, I remember talking to you, and you were like, well, how big is your business? And we weren't sharing tons of stuff, but you're like, I got this many. And you and I are almost exactly alike, I remember. And I'm like,
right.
And we started talking about our pains and struggles, and we had the same problems. We became blood brothers.
That's right.
So, but go ahead, Jesse. You got to hear that his dad has the best story in some of the products. I want to hear him to talk about this.
Go way back to the beginning, though, man, if you don't mind. We want to know how you got into the automotive industry to begin with. What was your first experience, first job, first whatever, and the family side too, if you don't mind. Go back to the beginning.
The very
50 years, right? Look at his shirt.
Can you see it?
50 years. Wow.
So I was 12 years old. I think it was 10 years old. I was 10 years old, and my dad was we were living in Fresno, and my dad was working for a company called United Glass, and it was a glass company. And every Christmas, my dad found a way to get fired at the Christmas parties.
Wait, why?
Well, he was drinking. He'd always get in an argument and fight with one of the employees, and
I love it.
And every year he'd come back the next day and everything was fine. It was a big joke, Manuel's going to get fired this Christmas. Well, one Christmas he didn't get rehired. Okay.
Oh.
But prior to that, with United Glass, he went to his owner and he started up calling on car dealers and started air conditioning business, and it was called ARA, Automotive Refrigerant Air. And Bob Backus at the time was the president of ARA, and he lived in Dallas, and he set United Glass up with air conditioning in the Fresno Central Valley, and basically built the business for United Glass with air conditioning. So when he got fired, he was without a job, called Bob Backus, and Bob told him, he goes, look, he goes, we'll find a place for you. Okay. He goes, pack your bags and come up to Dallas. Bring the family up to his lake house in Dallas. So little did we know, 9 years old, the family of 4 kids took a motorhome, went across country. And Bob had one place for my dad to stop off, and it was in LA. Went to LA, met a guy, and he's like, it's not going to work. So we continued to Dallas. And again, we had no idea my dad didn't have a job. And so we get to Dallas, had a great time. That's why I learned how to water ski. And Bob had talked to my dad. He goes, look, he goes, we'll find a spot for you. He goes, when you get back, he goes, I want you to go up to the Bay Area. I want you to meet a guy by the name of Joe Huber. And, just check it out. And so before we left, he'd asked my dad, he goes, how much were you making a month at United? Your bring home. He goes, I was bringing home $1,500 a month. He goes, okay. He goes, until we find you a job, he goes, I'll have a check for you.
Wow. And this is basically like a manufacturer, right?
This is a manufacturer. Yeah, it was the president, owner of ARA, Bob Backus, just said, hey, look, it was on a handshake. He goes, when you go back home, he goes, I will have $1,500 check until we find you a place to work.
Now, is it because was your dad like an installer? Was he a manager? Was he selling? Was he doing it all?
He was selling, dispatching, calling on car dealers. He was the one that was building the relationships with the dealers in Fresno. And that's where the air conditioning business came from. So he saw what he did in Fresno. And he's like, I'm going to find somewhere for you to do the same thing somewhere else. So we get home from our trip and there's a check. My dad told me there's a check for $1,500. And, man of his word, Bob said, it goes, go up to the Bay Area, check out this place called AutoHaus. Joe Huber owned it. And he came up and he says, yeah, I could work with Joe. And so 3 months later, they were in partnership. Bob basically put my dad in business. And
so he said, Jim, Manny's your new partner.
Joe, this is your new partner, Manny, and he's going to build the business in the Bay Area for the air conditioning.
Wow.
And so that lasted about a year of a partnership. And then my dad ended up buying him out.
About a year. Okay.
About a year after that, bought him out. So it's basically, that's how AutoHaus started with air conditioning in the Bay Area. And we would get truckloads of cars from Dodge, Ford, Nissan. They would, instead of taking them to the dealerships, they were bringing them to AutoHaus, and we were putting in air conditioning. And that's pretty much how that portion started, from air conditioning to radios. And, there was a time when the winter time, it would really get slow. So the air conditioning was going down. He's like, I've got to start something, different, to take care of this winter portion. So he goes to his partner, Joe. He says, we've got to go to the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. He goes, we're going to get into car audio. So they fly to Vegas. They go into the show for probably about 2 hours. And he tells Joe, he goes, let's go. He goes, we just got here. He goes, let's go. He goes, we have no idea how to do this. He goes, this is not for us. He goes, we need to hire somebody that knows this business. So they came back and they found a guy, Paul, I think it was Paul Dombricki. And he was a car audio guru, and he basically built the business with car audio. So we're doing car audio, we're doing alarm systems. And that's how that retail segment came in line.
Is this the 80s roughly?
Yeah, it was the 80s, because I know I came in, I had worked all the summers, every summer I'd come in, I'd be sweeping floors, I'd be, stirring up problems with the installers, but yeah, it was 74, 75, 76 is when that started.
And what were they
So
doing before your dad got there with air conditioning? What were they installing?
headliner repair,
Okay.
service work, but nothing like what it is today.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow. While we're on talking about the air conditioner, I have two questions. Number one, explain, because some people may not understand this. You've explained it to me in detail, and I love it. But explain, what do you mean adding air conditioning to a car? Because now it's standard. And number two, do you even need air conditioning where you live in California?
You do, absolutely.
Oh,
Northern
okay.
California, it's hot, but
Okay.
cars were coming without air. A Dodge van, Econoline van, Ford Rangers without air conditioning. So you would basically drop the dash, put an air conditioning unit, and utilize the vents that were there, and you'd add air conditioning.
So you just like put a compressor under the hood.
Put a compressor underneath the hood, evaporator core up underneath the hood, condenser in the front of the grill.
And how much did that cost to a dealer? Do you have any,
I think
you remember?
back then it was like $795 to $995.
Oh, so it was like $1,000, and that's
Yeah,
a
it was
lot
about
back
1,000
then.
now. Right. Yeah.
Wow.
And guys were taking, 2 or 3 hours to install them.
But it's like today, you have your trim level. And so these base cars were like, maybe $10,000 without air conditioning. But if you wanted air conditioning, you had to jump to probably a $15,000, $16,000 car.
Right.
Wow.
So
but by the time you got there, they were done with air conditioning, right?
when I started, my job was to QC the air conditioner. So I would check the temperature. We had Nissan that would bring their cars in from the port, and we were doing air conditioning, we were doing radios. So I would set the stations, check the temperature. I was the QC guy, and then it would go straight to the dealership. So
No, not much has
yep.
changed.
No, I'm still a QC guy. Yeah. So that's how, air conditioning, the car audio. As far as my role with the company in the early days, the summertime was just QC, cleaning the shop. And then I got into air conditioning service work. I hated working on cars. I would always lose tools. I would always get frustrated. But that's how I started. I was just like, okay, put Manny in the back with one of the guys and just keep him back there. And then eventually they knew like this is not for him. So then we were selling air conditioning parts. We're doing an AC Delco, we're doing Ford parts. And so then I started off helping in the parts department, and then I was selling parts. And that's kind of how I got started in sales, was parts. So I worked up front, and then kind of led into the car audio, working in sales. So that's kind of how I got into the sales portion rather than working in the back end of the shop. So
go ahead, Jesse.
I was just going to ask if you could go back and give yourself advice when you were young, like when you were just starting out. What would you tell your younger self?
Oh God, I can't remember that far back, honestly.
Marry Tammy earlier.
Yeah, married my wife earlier. I just, when I got out of high school, I went to college and I played soccer, and that's all I wanted to do. I was not one for books and to studying, and I was into sports, and I knew my dad had a business, and I wanted to play sports, so I had to go to college, but then I wanted to work at AutoHaus. So going to a junior college for 2 years playing soccer. After that, they said I had 2 more years of junior college because I didn't take any of the right classes because I was just going to play soccer. So eventually, my classes started with, 4 or 5 classes down to 1 class. And my dad's like noticing the checks are getting bigger and bigger, and noticing that I'm spending more time at AutoHaus. And he's like, what happened to college? I said, I'm taking a sabbatical.
Mm.
I go, well, yeah, Dad, that's not what I want to do. I just want to work. So that's how I ended.
You're on a 30-year sabbatical right now.
Right. I'm 30-year sabbatical. So
Wow.
So-
So your audio. So you were selling the parts, and then you got into audio. What were the audio systems? What was like your first audio systems you were selling? What was it?
It was Alpine. Was Alpine.
What give me a car, like the kind of head unit. Alpine.
Alpine. It was I don't even know what kind of cars we're working on back there, but it was a radio with speakers and an amplifier, and then all of a sudden you get into subwoofers, you know.
So you remember when? I mean, you were around when navigation started taking off and DVD players and backup cameras. I mean, what was like the ones that really awestruck you when you went to CES? You're like, there's no way we're ever going to be doing this. And now it's even ancient history.
It was the porn convention underneath the CES.
What is it? The porter?
Well,
fair enough.
It was at the same time, so that's
the porn convention. The one that you were like, what did you get back from CES, man? You're like, they're just new radios coming out.
Yeah. Well, when we first started, going to CES, it was just audio and alarm systems, and there was no mobile video. Taking it back when I got out of sales at the inside, my dad had a couple of guys that were calling on car dealerships, and I had no idea how to call on a car dealership. They basically said, you go out. And I took what I learned in the retail of alarm systems. That was the easiest thing for me, to go to a car dealer and try to sell them an alarm system. So, calling on car dealers, sound alarm systems, that's where it basically started for me. And then eventually the coolest thing was the mobile video. And there was nobody in the Bay Area doing mobile video. And I remember my dad had a Suburban, and AudioVox came to visit us, and they were doing the vans where they had a center console in the middle with a little 4-inch, 5-inch TV, and it went in the center. And they're like, this is what you need to start off with. So I think we bought, 20 of these units. I'm like, I could sell these. And I go, but what's really cool is that one that goes overhead.
Yeah.
And they're like, you don't want to do that one. That one takes a lot of time, for installation. And I'm like, no, that's the one I want. My dad's got a Suburban. So we put that Suburban, and I took that over. And that's when it really blew up for me. And like, okay, I get it. This is fun.
Jesse, we're not even talking about DVD players.
Right.
We're talking about a flip down screen with a VCP, video cassette player.
That's right.
That would go under the seat. Because did you ever do any of the auto cinemas? Because they had the patent to put the VCP up in the ceiling.
Yes, we did. Yep.
Yeah. But so that was like that thing was so long. It had a screen up here, and then it had this long shroud. And then you put the VCP in the back, and you hung it all on the ceiling. But AudioVox did have they kind of had the market eventually with the 7-inch screen, with VCP
we
under the seat.
We had one in the front, or not one in the front, but one for each row.
Oh,
and
yeah. Ooh.
We had Top Gun playing. I take it at the dealership. Top Gun had the blasting, so it created some excitement. But that really, really helped us, when that first came out. That was the thing.
Jeez. Do you remember the first DVD player you did?
No, God.
I remember we ordered one, and it was like $700 just for the DVD player. And it was like gold. It was probably made out of gold. But I remember I'm like, man, and we put that thing in, we installed it, and it skipped. Like every couple miles it would skip. But I was like, they said, no, this is made for the car. This is made for the car. We had that thing forever. I was like, well, no one's ever going to buy this thing. It's way too expensive. We'll never do DVDs in cars. They're way too expensive.
Well, another first for my dad was cell phones. We were the
Oh,
first. We were the first in the Bay Area to. We had a connection with GTE. It was GTE at the time, and
Oh,
GTE contracted with AutoHaus to do all the installs. We were installing cell phones with a big brick in
like
the
a
back of
car
the
phone.
trunk. Car
Like,
phones. It was a
yeah,
car phone.
and
car
a
Yeah.
phones.
brick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Manny,
Sheesh.
when you look back at all that history with the company and you, what would you say is one of the toughest challenges you faced in the industry, or maybe one or two of the challenges? What were some of the tough stuff that you got through?
well, I think we still go. It's still today. I mean, the challenge is, these cars, are coming with more and more stuff. You're always looking for something to add to the car. Um, Dealing with car dealers, there's always a constant change. So, you know, every day it's a challenge to try to find that next thing. It's again, 100%, it's all relationships with the car dealers. So if you have something and you have the relationship, you know, that's what I think is kept us going are these relationships for the past 50 years, where these dealers do trust when we do bring something new, you know. When there's a change in a dealership, it hurts us. When there's a change in a dealership where they sell their entire dealer group, and we're relying on this income from this dealer group. Um, we had at the time 14 dealerships, and it was called the Lucas Dealer Group. They had 4 Saturn stores, they had Honda, they had stores in Hawaii, and we were doing everything for them: radios, sunroofs, um, alarm systems. And then overnight, they sold to AutoNation, Artisonic,
Mm.
and that was a big challenge. That we put everything into that one account, servicing it, and now you got to start all over again. So that's been a constant challenge, is relationships with people when they move from places to places. Sometimes they'll move to a different dealer and we can't do business with them because it's a different type of dealership. It might be a corporate account. So, that's a constant challenge.
Talk about what are the pros and cons. So it's kind of like kids, right? I always say kids are the best, worst things ever. I love them, but then you want to kill them sometimes. What is it? So Manny, you've come from a big family, a lot of families in the business. Your sister's still in the business. You worked with both your parents in the business. Talk about some of the benefits and challenges for those that might be in a similar situation.
Well, family is always tough. It's family business is never easy. But I could say that, the positive sides for me is that, my dad, I felt, always trusted me to make mistakes. He'd guide me, and, I could always turn to him. We had our battles. He didn't agree with, a lot of the stuff that I was doing. But I could say he allowed me to make the decision, and if it didn't work, it didn't work, and learn from my mistakes. He went to MIT, and he says I went to MIT too. Mistakes I tried.
MIT. I
So
like it. Yeah, I like that.
you know the benefit too is that you're your own boss,
Yeah.
and you're able to make these decisions and make changes. you know I volunteered probably 5 years ago for um, the soccer club in Livermore where I live, and I was on the board and in charge of a division, and that was really the first time that I volunteered for a board, and I had to listen to parents, I had to listen to the board, and I couldn't say no. This is where we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And it really taught me a lot, that those 2 years of what it's like to work for somebody. I'm like, I'm never going to do this.
Yeah.
So, but it was humbling. It was a learning experience. So the pluses of working for a family business is, that, yeah, you do get to make your own decisions, and, you do have the flexibility as well. There's a lot of things you can't do if you're working for somebody. So working for the family business in that aspect was, very positive.
I think also when you talk about it, it's like, yeah, the great thing is when you have wins and everything's good, you're there with your family, you're celebrating with your family. You also
Right.
have the challenge of you might be over their house on Saturday night because it's family night and everybody's talking business and mad at each
Right.
other.
Right.
So,
Right. We would try to keep that work is work, family is family. And I think that's, my son's working with me now too. And, we come home and we really don't talk about work. How was your day? It was great. Great. You know,
yeah,
and, if he wants to talk more about it, great. But I'm not the one that's bringing it up. You broke this, you did this, so
yeah,
that's our, keep it away.
it's good.
Boundaries, good boundaries.
Yes.
Let's spend a minute just talking about AutoHaus Automotive, Manny. So, like, what do you feel sets you guys apart? I know you guys are unique. You do a lot of cool stuff that's different, high quality. You're picking up vehicles. You're doing a lot of extra customer service. But what would you say about what makes you guys different?
I would say, a couple of things that make us different, but I would say the way that we run the operation, the expectations of, it's a system, it's a quality control system, the paperwork, the inventory, it's the structure of it. I think, we're a small family business, but yeah, there's things that we do that, a bigger business would do as far as managing your money, your P&Ls. By the 10th, we know exactly where we're at. We look at our numbers every day. When we're processing our orders, everything's documented, so there's no surprises. Everybody knows when that product comes in, what it's for. So it's, I would say my dad really helped set the structure up of how to run the business versus just ordering stuff that comes in. It's on inventory. I could run a report. I could see exactly how much I have in inventory. I can see what I need. I can see what the cost is. I could look up the past history on a dealership. So it's the structure portions that I feel like is different from some of the other mom and pop shops that run their company like ours. Um, when we say, quality means everything to us, I really believe that, it does. We take pictures when we pick up cars. When customers bring in their cars, we're taking pictures. We're QCing the car. We're writing the mileage down. Just the little things when we take it back to the dealership, we're taking pictures. We're protecting ourselves. You could just deliver it back and it's loose. There's damage on the car. Who's paying for it? I'm paying for it. Well, I got pictures of the car. The simple thing with, the mileage, customer says, you put, 200 miles on my car. It's the structure. It's set up where, no, this is what we picked it up, got to AutoHaus. This is the miles that we put on the car. We really do check the work before it goes back to the dealer. My installers have got to check it. My manager has to check it. My driver has to check it before it gets back to the dealer. The worst thing that can happen is I get the phone call that said, hey, the window tint came off. Hey, paint protection came off. First thing I ask is, who took the pictures? Where's the quality? Where's the QC to protect ourselves from that? So, answering the phone, taking care of the car dealer. We've got Rich that's been with us for 30 plus years. I think 31 years now. He started out as an installer, and now he's running our store. This guy, he cares. about our business. He's family. We say he's family, but Rich is family. But we're fortunate to have had him follow all the procedures that we've put in place. So it does start as well with how Rich has handled the business.
That's awesome. Also, retail, wholesale dealership, fleet, all three. Talk about your thoughts about that, because we all talk about that. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Are you traditionally, what have you guys been, and what are you moving to, or what?
Okay. Traditionally, we have been 80%, 70% dealer wholesale, and 30%, 35% retail. And prior to COVID, we started switching a little bit more retail, but it was 60-40. And after COVID, completely switched 70% retail, 30% dealer business. The last 3 years, we've definitely have gotten back up our dealer business. Right now it's a third dealer business, a third retail, and a third commercial. The commercial is coming from the dealer, where the dealer is referring their fleet customer to us that might have 5 or 6 vans, and we're doing upfits for those vans. So that's where I call it business to business. That's the commercial side. So we've really transitioned into, once we got into doing more fleet and commercial, it's helped our business to business.
Gotcha. What do you think some of the next restyling products are coming down in the future that you guys are going to focus on?
Well, I would say, this last year, we got into the upfitting of the ladder racks, the van partitions, and we started, dabbling into it. We hit a few Ford dealers, and they were feeding us. And when was Holman at our last restylers?
Minneapolis.
6 months ago?
Yeah, probably 6 months ago.
6 months ago is when we went all in and we're able to get direct with Holman. We're doing, we're really hitting the fleet departments for the partitions, the shelving, the ladder racks. So, moving forward this year, that's really our focus is to build that business. So for what's new, it's that, but really, to go after more and more fleet accounts. We've got probably 4 dealers that are really starting to feed us, and we're getting more and more as we take care of these dealers. We're turning around faster for them, so I think they're trusting us, and we're getting more and more calls for that.
Are you going to add air conditioning to the lineup?
We are not.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
No.
Okay. So
No.
even if they wanted HVAC in the back, you're like, listen, we went down that road. You're
Yeah.
30 years late,
No. That's going to take another, what's nice about the upfits is that, it's universal. We can have guys in the shop that, have done tonneau cover steps.
Yeah.
Dive into that department. Air conditioning, you really need an air conditioning guy.
Yeah. You're right. With all the Freon rules, I'm sure your dad
Right.
didn't have to deal with the Freon rules.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
he was dumping it down the sewer, he was just throwing it in the bay.
Right.
All the old Freon kick
Right.
out and everything.
Letting it out in the air.
Yeah, I'm sure California has no restrictions these days.
Right.
Gosh. Ugh.
So, as far as the restyling we got into the blackout packages, and that's our second segment for dealers that we're really focusing on as well.
Gotcha. And ceramic coating, you're doing probably some ceramic, you're doing a little bit are you doing wrap? You're doing some wraps.
We're doing wraps. We're doing more paint protection film and window tint.
Okay.
So
look at you.
Our segment is the paint protection film and the window tint, and then truck accessories is our other segment, and then in the truck accessories, the spray and bed liners. We started just doing spray and bed liners, and we were subbing it all out.
Yeah.
And we had this little storage in the back where we were just throwing, tables in and sunroofs, and my retail guy Matt was like upgrading these customers to spray and bed liners, and we were subbing it out down the street. And he tells me, he goes, man, I really think we could sell a lot of spray and bed liners. I'm like, okay, let's do it. I go, where are we going to do it? He goes, let's empty out this bin, put a roll-up door, and get a machine and start doing it ourselves. I'm like, okay, do it. And once we converted that was probably our best move for getting into truck accessories.
Nice. Yeah, because that leads to tonneau covers and step bars and everything else.
It totally changed the direction to, now truck accessories. So, and that's the lead in. Get them in the store, get them in with the spray and bed liner, and then all of a sudden we're upgrading to steps and, like you said, all the other accessories.
Well, my last question is, how has, whether it's Restylers United or other people that or, your peers or SEMA Pro, how have those things, what's the benefit for you or maybe others that are listening to, get to know your peers?
I would say as an owner, you have nobody to turn to. You're on an island, and you're trying to figure, you have, your 15, 20 guys in the back, and it's your responsibility to make sure that they feed their family. And it's up to you to go out and get new business. And you can go out there and you could spin and get frustrated, get rejected all day, and you're out and you don't know what to do. And, getting to know your peers, getting connected with Restylers United gave me someone to turn to lean on, to get ideas, to, where I don't feel like I'm alone and I got to figure it all out on my own. Yeah. That's been the biggest thing for me.
Nice. Go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, Manny, thanks so much for your time today. We might even need to do a part 2, Josh, because there's a lot more we can talk about too.
Well, if we're going to do a part 2, number one, his mom needs to be there and his wife needs to be there, because those are the two ladies that keeps this guy in line.
Right.
I love it.
That's great.
Manny, why don't you can do a little shout out. How do people get a hold of you or learn more about your company? Maybe mention your website or phone numbers, or where do you want people to follow you on social media, or what would you like to share with our listeners?
Well, as far as, following us on Instagram or Facebook, AutoHaus Automotive Solutions. And then as far as, direct, it's 510-881-1915.
Nice.
And if it's AutoHaus, let's just make it sure, because if they're listening, it's
HAUS.
HAUS, the real AutoHaus. House.
AutoHausAutomotive.com.
You got it.
Awesome.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you so much for being part of it, bro. We appreciate you. Love you, baby. And
thank you, guys.
I'll see you soon, I'm sure.
All right.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
And there you have it, another high-octane episode of the Ride and Style podcast, revved up and ready to go. Your hosts, Jesse Stoddard and Josh Poulson, shifted your automotive game into overdrive. If you're hungry for more insights, trends, and game-changing interviews from the automotive restyling universe, don't forget to hit subscribe and leave a glowing review. We'd also love for you to share this podcast with your gearheads, installers, and auto lovers network. Because remember, knowledge is power, but shared knowledge turbocharges the whole industry. For more expert resources to supercharge your business, cruise on over to autostylemarketing.com, your one-stop shop for everything automotive marketing. Until next time, keep those wheels spinning and your passion ignited. Thank you for riding in style with us. See you on the next lap.